Hello,
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Weighins just wrapped up, so I'm here at the Apex. Just kind of finished up my morning. I'm gonna shut these doors so people don't hear me. They're doing fighter meetings right behind these doors, so I don't want them to have to
Okay,
listen to me talk
share
all the
some
time.
news with us.
Thank you for having me.
Share some news for us.
Say that again.
Can you share some news for us?
Oh gosh, well, weigh-ins went well this morning. Everybody made weight. Actually, no, that's not true. Gabriel Benitez, I think, did miss weight by a little bit, but the fight is still on. And yeah, everybody's looking good. The main event is intact, so that's always the important part. And yeah, everybody feeling good. Kind of a regularly scheduled program here at for morning weigh-ins.
Okay, I will try to introduce you, for guys who don't know you, but I'm sure you don't need introduction. So, like an ex-MMA fighter with a great score, you're a mom who studied economics, and then journalism find its way to you.
Yes.
You're a reporter, analyst. Previous year, you was nominated for the Personality of the Year at the MMA World Awards. So, how do you feel about that when you look back?
Gosh, when you say all of those things at once, it does seem like a lot. It's been a really incredible year, and I'm incredibly grateful for some of the things that you mentioned, like being nominated for the award and being able to sort of find new roles in the UFC and kind of carve new paths for myself, but more importantly, hopefully for other women, in MMA and who pursue journalism in this sport and really any sport. I think it can be intimidating to come into these worlds where it's very male dominated, but hopefully hopefully I can make it just that much easier for someone else to do the same thing. But yes, it's a lot. I have a lot of roles. I have a lot of roles within the UFC. I have a lot of roles within my life, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm very happy.
UFC 2001 was wild as always, and Israel is still the one. Andrade Morozov did a good job there. Taiwasa is now third ranked in heavyweight. What is like a general impression of that night?
Oh man, it was a great night. First off, Houston, Texas is always a fantastic city where they host fights. I mean, they roll out the red carpet for us, and it seems like every time we go to Houston, something really special happens. I think in the main event, Israel Adesanya showed us once again just what a master he is, a master technician, master fight IQ, and you know, he knew, and we all knew, that Rob Whittaker was going to be making some pretty significant adjustments coming into that fight. And although he didn't lean on the wrestling quite as much as some of us thought, including myself, some of us thought that he would. He did make some big adjustments. He was a little bit more patient. And it's really a testament, I think, to the level of Israel Adesanya's thinking and striking and fight IQ that he can, in the moment, make his own adjustments to the adjustments of Robert Whittaker. And I had him winning the fight. I think, when I'm watching a fight as a reporter, which I was that night, I watch it differently than if I'm doing commentary or if I'm working the desk as an analyst. I watch the fight very differently. And I don't really score it as I'm watching it because I'm thinking about the storylines and I'm thinking about questions I'm going to ask the fighter afterwards. But that being said, I was a little bit surprised when Whittaker felt like he had done enough to win the fight, because I remember my overall impression, at least, was that Izzy had definitely won the fight. It was close. Each round was close, but I felt like Israel Adesanya had certainly done enough. And I haven't had a chance to watch it all back yet, so it's not fair for me to turn in another scorecard. But that was my impression on the night. It was a fantastic main event. And you asked about the co-main event as well. Wow, just wow. I mean, to be able to go into the backyard of Derek Lewis and do that, get that type of knockout, really, really incredible night for Tai Tuivasa. And I think people, quite often in the heavyweight division, fighters are not given enough credit for their fight IQ, their technique, because we always end up saying, well, they're big guys and then big punches and they,
Yeah.
they sling and bang, whatever. There was a lot of gamesmanship really in that fight, and Tai as a whole, when you look back at his last couple of performances, has really started to showcase an elevated fight IQ. But in that fight, what I was most impressed with was his chin. I mean, he took some massive shots from the guy who owns the knockout record in the history of the UFC. So if you combine Tai's growing fight IQ, his incredible chin, the incredible power that he himself has, I really do think he has everything it takes to be a heavyweight champion one day, for sure.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Israel and Whittaker again. Bisping said that Izzy is the best striker we have ever seen in the UFC, and Charles Sonnen said that he thought we had a new champion. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think about that two statements?
Well, I think it's interesting, and it really speaks to I think what makes MMA as a sport so special, that two guys who were at the top of their division, the middleweight division, the same division, can have such differing opinions, right, about how the fight went down. I tend to lean toward Michael Bisping's opinion. I think that, like I said earlier, Israel Adesanya is just something incredibly special to watch, and I think that it's going to take, I don't know, it's going to take someone very special to be able to dethrone him. You know, we saw him obviously lose when he attempted to go up to light heavyweight, but the way that he lost was not because of superior technique. It was superior physicality. And at 185, I just don't know that anybody is going to be able to do to him what Jan Blachowicz did at 205. So I think Izzy is going to be around for a very long time, a very long reigning champion. Is he the best striker in the history of the UFC? He's close. I might give it to Anderson Silva, another, you know, probably if you have a Mount Rushmore, so to speak, of middleweights, you have to put Anderson Silva at the top. But I think Israel Adesanya might even be number 2 at this point. So he's hot on his heels.
Yeah. We mentioned Tuivasa, but girl, you crossed the game with the Shui challenge. Whose idea was that for studio?
I think that was the producer's idea, because we knew that we were going to have Tai on to do the interview. And obviously that is his signature move, so to speak, right? You know, and so it's funny though, because it's not my first shoey, not even close.
Really?
No. I had done a shoey a couple years ago in Houston when Justin Tafa won his fight, and there was even a night in Vegas a few years ago off camera when Tai was around. I was after I had done a Contender series, and he was downstairs at the bar, and he taught me how to do one then. So I did so well because I'm very experienced.
You did it.
I'm very experienced, yes.
So let's talk about you a little bit. You studied economics, am I right?
Business, yes.
So,
yeah.
But journalism find its way to you. So how does that happen? Do you remember your first time in front of camera?
Yes, I do. It was terrifying. It was terrifying because, again, I didn't study journalism. I really had no interest in journalism for the sake of journalism. Journalism found me because of fighting. And really, to be honest with you, I don't ever refer to myself as a journalist, because to me, that's someone who did go to school for it and who, you know, I work for the UFC and, you know, an on-camera broadcast or whatever the case may be. But yes, an unexpected change of careers for sure. When I first started working, I was in venture capital right out of college. And then I was in public relations for a little while. So completely unrelated to what I'm doing now. But when I was, after I was done fighting at Invicta FC, the owner, Shannon Knapp, suggested that maybe I would enjoy doing some, you know, some little reports on the sidelines. And I knew I wanted to stay close to the sport. MMA is something that once you do it, and once you, I don't know, it has this way of like reaching inside of you and taking a hold of you, I guess. So when I knew that I would be taking a long break from fighting, I didn't know I would be done with fighting at the time, but I knew I would be taking a long break because I'd had my son. And so when she suggested, I said, okay, why not? And I told her, I said, Shayna, you do understand, I have never talked to a camera before. I've never even held a microphone before. And she was just like, I think you can do it. I think that you'll be great. So that's how, yeah, that's how that happened. I went back and actually watched my first interview, and it was terrible. It was so bad. I was speaking so slowly because I was so worried about tripping over my words that I called my husband after the fight, and I said, "How did I do?" And he said, "Well, you kind of sounded like you had a stroke." Because I was speaking so slowly and so deliberately, and I was like, "Oh, thanks, great." But I guess it was good enough to do it again and keep going.
I feel you because I was in the same situation, and I was a law student, so I didn't study journalism
Yeah.
as well. So let's talk about UFC, women in the UFC.
Yeah.
Like, do you think girls are more passionate when it comes to the martial sports more than men?
I think that women naturally, because it's changing, but I would say that this is still true. There's still a little part of us that feels like we have to prove that we belong here. And I think because we feel like we need to prove it to really show like, no, I deserve to be here. I am worthy of being in the UFC, whatever the case may be. Women always fight with just a little bit extra, a little bit of a, chip on their shoulder to prove that, that they can not compete against the men, but can be elevated to the same status that the male fighters can. So yeah, I think they train with a little bit more passion, and I think that they definitely fight with a little bit more passion because I feel like every time a woman takes the stage in the UFC, she's to some degree aware that she's representing all of the women in the UFC, because there is still sort of this idea that like, we need to prove that these weight classes are good business to be in, and that women's MMA is just as important as the men's side of things, for sure.
So, who is your favorite female fighter, and what do you think about Rose Namajunas?
Gosh, I can't pick, and I know that that's not. I'm not answering the question well. I genuinely can't pick.
Okay.
But when you say that, who immediately came to mind was Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, and Rose Namajunas. I mean,
Yeah.
To me, all three of them embody. They're very different champions. They're different people. They're different types of champions. They fight differently, but all three of them are such a wonderful representation of what women's MMA is all about. And I think that they're inspirational to me. When I was fighting, I never imagined I would be doing the stuff I'm doing now, right? My goal was to be doing what they're now doing. So I think it's why I feel such a connection whenever I interview fighters, but especially female fighters, because there's a little part of me that's living vicariously through them when they fight. And it's probably why I get so emotional when I interview them too after they win, because my heart fills with happiness whenever I see women like that who I know have worked, years and years and sacrificed so much to reach that level and to represent so well the way that they do in the sport. It's just amazing to see. So yeah, when you say that, Amanda, Valentina, Rose come to mind. But if you sent me a list, I would say all of them.
You started with karate, Rose started with taekwondo, Nunez started with capoeira and karate. So can we say that in the end, like all martial arts leads to MMA? We are witnessing how many great fighters came to MMA from other sports.
Yes, I think so. I think, the sport has changed so much from when I was fighting. I mean, unbelievable how much it's changed, because you're right. I mean, when I was coming up and when I was young, especially, being an MMA fighter it's not something that was really even an option. There were no women in the UFC for the longest time. So it's not like it was a career to aspire to. So the women that you're seeing now reach these heights, who have been doing it for so long, they started out for the love of martial arts, not because they thought that they could become superstars or rich or famous one day. When all of those women that you mentioned started, there really wasn't an end game. There wasn't this, I'm pointing out, you can't see the octagon. There wasn't this octagon to reach. And now there is. And what's amazing is now you're starting to see people like Casey O'Neill or like Kay Hansen, who are so young, and they grew up doing, a lot of them, they grew up doing MMA. They started in MMA. And that to me is really cool to see this next generation of female fighters who not only love martial arts, but they love MMA. And they started out and they knew, I want to be like Ronda, or I want to be like Valentina, or I want to be like Amanda. And that's what those women have created, is an idea to aspire to.
Yeah. So UFC is the biggest promotion and the best fighter platform ever made. So except that, UFC is like more than that. Promotion that gave the space to fighters to express themselves. They brought all those people closer to the media and audience, and whole world can hear about them.
Yep.
So will anyone ever get closer to what UFC did in near future?
Not in the near future, no. I think it's this would be a very long conversation. This is a difficult business to be in, and I know that it's a very complicated question, and it's a very complicated dynamic between promotions and fighters, and all of the give and take between those two parties. But at the end of the day, it's not easy to start an MMA promotion, and you can look through history and see dozens of promotions that started and had lots of money behind them, and then the next year gone, whatever the case may be. The UFC has gone about this the right way in building a company that so far, is unrivaled in terms of who they are in the industry. I'm glad that there's other great promotions out there. It makes for a healthy ecosystem, so to speak. But the reality is that for fighters coming up, when they talk about achieving their dream, they talk about achieving their dream in the UFC. We see that all the time on Contender Series. So yeah, right now, I think for a very long time, the UFC will stand alone in that status.
When we are talking about this, are you aware of how huge impact UFC have on the development of the MMA in the rest of the world?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think, last season of Contender Series was a perfect example of that, because a lot of the younger up and coming fighters from the United States were brought into the UFC because of COVID needs. We'd had a lot of last minute replacements. So for Contender Series, it was a very different looking crop of fighters, very international. It was like by far the most international season we've had. And it was really cool to see and hear their stories, to talk about how they found the sport. And more often than not, whether you're in the far reaches of China, in a very small, farming community in China, or Russia or Brazil or wherever, MMA and the UFC in particular has found its way into these people's lives, usually via television, and sparked a moment where they're like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to grow up and be. So it's really incredible to see the far-reaching impact. And now with more and more performance institutes being built around the world, I think we'll see even more of that in years to come. You look at the list of champions right now, I might get this stat wrong, but I want to say we maybe only have one American champion in Aljamain Sterling that I can think of. I'm trying to run through my head right now. But regardless, very, very few. When you look at the champions in the UFC, it's like the United Nations, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah. So so many great fighters came from American top team, like Amanda, Tyrone, Poirier. What do you think about American top team and their fighters?
Oh, it's a wonderful gym. I mean, it's by far the most ubiquitous gym in the sport right now, I think. And they really have something special down there. I think more than anything, it speaks to the level of their coaching staff. To have, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I don't know the exact number, but they have to have over 80 UFC fighters easily. I'd have to, someone can correct me on that number, but whatever number it is, it's way more than you would realize it is. And
Yes.
Just a huge facility, a phenomenal group of people. And Conan Silveira is a guy that is very, near and dear to my heart. He's a wonderful person. Mike Brown, I mean, you couldn't ask for better people. And that really is, at the end of the day, what makes a gym. It's not the building, it's not the facilities, it's the coaches. And then the coaches who attract the right fighters, and then the right fighters who are there to be great training partners for other people. So they definitely have something special down there for sure.
So you showed to us how good analyst you are and how good reporter you are. And you're a great example of a successful woman in the MMA, a girl who followed her dream job. So what is next for you, like in next 5 years?
Oh, 5 years? That's hard to predict, which is kind of exciting, because 5 years ago, if you would have asked me if I would be here, I would have said absolutely not. So, you know, for me, the immediate goal and the immediate dream is to be able to transition to fight night commentary. You know, I call Contender Series fights now as a color commentator, which has always been my dream. And it was an amazing moment to kind of, to be able to have that little piece of history and be the first female commentator under the Zuffa banner. But I still feel like there's a little asterisk, you know, by that accomplishment, because it's not technically a fight night. So I hope that's my goal for this year, is to be able to transition to color commentary for a fight night. But in the meantime, I'm going to be putting the work in. I'll continue to call Contender Series fights, work the desk, work my reporting role here whenever need be. So I want to be as useful as possible, do as many things as possible so that I can eventually achieve that goal.
Laura, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I hope we'll talk soon next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great day.